before I talk about what our team is doing with data and how we're working through the challenges here, let me give you a little bit of context in terms of the role that I'm doing and my team and what we're working through. So I lead the Digital Marketing Center for Asia Pacific, and we support the hardware business unit for IBM. And our mission is that we work very closely with our digital reps, and we're really mandated with driving high quality leads for them to convert to opportunities. Our KPI, so I'm measured on win revenue. I share the same revenue target as my digital sales reps, and so we're really tied together with that number. But to manage to that, I really look across the whole funnel, and I optimize the metrics across the funnel, right? So very much top of funnel, really focused on engagements and visits, mid funnel around responses and lead numbers and qualities and opportunity creation, plus obviously win revenue as well. So we do that by executing demand generation, and our campaigns are largely digitally focused, and we our mission is white space, so prospecting. And our campaigns are driven by these guiding principles. So firstly, we are we're striving for a buyer-centric approach. And what that means is we really are trying to understand the client, really get close to what is that pain point and how do we deliver with a very clear and differentiated message and content. Secondly, we're trying to be very outcomes focused. So it's not about what it is we make, but it's more about what we put in market and the impact we have on the buyer and really how that drives performance. And then finally, like all of you here, we're really tasked with being data driven. And that's easy to say, but I have to say it's really tough to do, right? So it's about taking all of the data, and sorry, I mix between data and data, so sorry about that, listening to too many Americans. So it's about taking all of the data and then getting the insights, but also getting into this mindset that you're doing something with it, something that's actionable and really agile. We've used that not just to get close to the client, but also to use that to drive innovation as well. So it's been really critical. So let me then turn to how it is as a team we're approaching data, right? So for us, the approach we've taken is that we had to start with first-party data, right? That has been critical for us to really understand and get the best out of. And then once we've done that, that's then let us springboard into driving scale and making smarter investments with our second and third party data. So some of the things that we look at and we get detailed information about is, just like SaaS, in terms of the web, we get a lot of information about, who's coming to our site, what are they doing with us, what are the interest areas, where are they dropping off, and what sort of engagement. We also look at our assets and content around engagement, what assets are working, what isn't, the channels and the formats that's working for us. We then also, through our DMP, are looking at and capturing first-party cookie data, but then we overlay third-party data to enrich our first-party data and really get a fuller picture of people coming to our site and interacting with us. And then from a campaign, other elements from a campaign perspective is we're looking at who's responding to us, what industries, what roles, what stage of the buyer journey, what are they responding to as we move them down the client's journey, right? What are the tactics and the activities that's increasing that response, the response score, right, with our scoring mechanism, so that we can get it to a trigger point where it is a strong enough lead to have a conversation with the sales reps. So all of this is really valuable for us, right? And it's valuable in that it drives a few things. firstly, it drives optimization of your campaign, right? It's the basis of it. We do a lot of optimization, especially at top of funnel and mid of funnel, using this data. But it's also important because we go very early in the sales cycle to engage our buyers. We find that we have to go at the discover and early learn stage if we're going to get to people and influence them when they are actually building their buying agenda. So that means then for us, it's a very long nurture process. So to keep people engaged in the nurture process and to go along with them, you need to make sure that you're giving them what they want, i.e. you're moving down the path of personalization. And to do that, all of this data and what we're learning about the client, what their interest areas are, what are they looking at, what are they wanting next, that's critical. This all ties into our nurture streams and allows us to do the personalization. The other thing that this allows us to do is that it allows us to make smarter investments in second and third party. So where we've made investments built off first party insights, those are the segments that we're seeing do better for us. So let me give you a couple of examples. The keyword volumes and the searches that we get through paid search and SEO, when we take those words and that traffic and we put that into programmatic contextual targeting, we do very well with that. Another example is taking our responder data, what are the roles that we're attracting, what are the industries, and then when we buy third-party data based off that, we're also doing well with that. When we do lookalike modeling with second and third-party data off of our first-party insights, we do well with that. So that's, for us, the key to success in terms of how do you scale what you're getting in first party into second and third party. So let me then turn to how are we engaging audiences and what role does data play in that, right? So for us, we're moving towards an audience first strategy. And what that means is that it's really moving away from business to individual communications. And one of the key parts of audience first is to have a strong messaging strategy, and have that impact. And for the messaging strategy to have the impact, it really needs to be able to be tailored for different purposes with your audience. And so let me talk through what I mean by that, right? And you read this chart from bottom up, right? So there are times with IBM that we want to introduce ourselves to people. There are times that we want to go prospecting, but obviously we may not know this audience, but our second and third party partners do. So we partner with them and we get that scale. There are times where we can observe behavioral habits and recognize behavioral habits with individuals based off what they're doing on things like IBM.com and other interactions we have. So we can see their interest areas, what are the products they're looking at, what are they doing with us further down the funnel, like trials and so on. And then there are people that we know, and we want to continue having a conversation with them. So we want to upsell them, we want to cross-sell them, we may want to retarget them, we may want to sell them a new product. So what we do is, all of these segments, that then all feeds into this messaging strategy, right? And in Audience First, it's all about aligning the conversation to the audience. And the elements in the circle, they help us do that in a way that the conversation becomes more personalized and more relevant to that audience. So, for instance, you align your offer to your messaging strategy. You align your content to the right audience and profile. You're offering to the need that you're looking for. And your journey has to be very outcomes orientated. Okay, and for us to do this, first party isn't going to give us the scale. So we absolutely need second and third party to drive that scale. So let me just wrap up and just in terms of how does that come together in a practical sense. So with our campaign teams, we're really driving them to look at their targeting and their audiences in this way, right? So it is about defining the set of attributes and behaviors that they can go after. And when you look at this example of this role, right, and the sort of attributes and behaviors we're talking about, we can't build it all with first-party data. We have to partner with relevant and reliable vendors to get some of the second and third-party attributes to just build that fuller picture of our audience. So in summary, I guess how we're approaching this is from a data perspective, really understanding and collecting that first-party data in an accurate way, then getting to mine those insights, and then using those insights to springboard into a few areas, right? Better nurture, better personalization, and also then the scale through second and third party vendors.
First of all, thank you, Sula. That was wonderful, and I'm sure everyone took away a lot. And now we just wanted to have a quick fireside chat with you to learn a little bit more and dive deeper into the data. You obviously have a regional role, and you work with a team across all of Asia Pacific, and I know that there's a handful of regional roles here in the audience as well. Have you seen in your experience, or do you see now, how data impacts marketing differently across the regions?
Yeah, so definitely, there are nuances in audience behavior and characteristics. So a CIO in ANZ or in Australia would have differences to a CIO in India. But I think where we're seeing the bigger differences is that, while some markets have got huge audience sizes, the depth of audience isn't necessarily there. So what I mean is the attributes and the data points that go with that audience isn't necessarily there. So when we look at ASEAN and India, we're getting huge audience sizes there, but the data points around that is very shallow, versus in ANZ, we're able to get much more depth there. So what that means in a real sense for us is that when we want to do things like ABM or interest profiling in some of those markets, we're getting actually smaller audience sizes, and 90% of our spend tends to be on role-based marketing.
Got it. Yes, absolutely. Well, and that's really great insight, and I appreciate that. And I think that parlays us nicely into the next question: is across the different regions, is there different data sets that you wish was available, or perhaps you see in some regions but now you can't touch them in the other regions, or is there data that you would like to have that would give you a better profile of the market that you're trying to go after?
Yeah, so I really think we need to get improvement in like the cross-device sort of matching, right? So from a user, all of the different devices that they're using, we get better visibility of that. Then we can do a better job of storytelling, right? And throughout the day or throughout the client journey. So I think that's one area that we would really love to see improvements. But I mean, the other sort of challenges we see is data decay, right? As people move, companies, how do we keep that data relevant? Also, we're still finding with major data providers that we're not getting complete data sets on firmographics. Still, as I mentioned, split, right? As much as maybe it's 2/3 of what we'd ideally like, right? And so those are some of the issues that we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And to switch gears a little bit, and we'll kind of focus on data quality for a little bit. And obviously that is always an issue. As marketers, we want to make sure that we're inputting the right type of data as well as have high quality data. What steps do you guys take when you look to import data, second or third party, to ensure that the data quality is there?
Okay, so I guess I won't go down the techie line because I'm not technical, but more in terms of working with a data provider. First of all, they have to meet our standards of GDPR compliance. So IBM is very out there, and so that's got to be a given. But once that is done, right, the sorts of things we look at is the source of the data, right? Even if it's a third party, not just second party, we're trying to see how much of data they're getting directly from publishers or CRM and networks and things like that. We also want some level of data, quite a good level of data transparency. So we want to see of that data, how much is declared, how much is inferred, and how much is model, right? And with the inferred and modeled piece, we'd like to understand what are the assumptions that they've used to do that, right? So we want to have that conversation, right, rather than take their word for it. The other areas also is, we look for vendors who are flexible enough to work with us to create segments that we want or modify segments and do analysis for us. I think that's really important that the vendor should be able to go that extra mile. And I think, and also the freshness of the data. So that's some of the major ones. I mean, there's loads, but those are some of the major things we look at.
Absolutely. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then obviously when it comes to data quality, it's the integration, so that data can be flexible enough, and then obviously some of the other values that the data is bringing to the table when it comes to second and third party. Switching gears one more time then, if you don't mind, obviously the gap between sales and marketing is something that we all face, and data is something that can help us bridge that gap. Are there any instances or examples of how you and your team at IBM have been using data to both bridge that gap, but even more importantly, empower sales to have more leverage? Sure.
I mean, I think data has been great because it's allowed us to view all of the touch points that we've had with the prospect, and so therefore we're able to better understand where they are in the client journey and are they ready to talk to sales. Certainly earlier, before we got such an extensive view, we were guilty of handing over to sales things that were, when people just really weren't ready, right? There was a lot of one-touch handovers to sales. So now we definitely are able to spend more time nurturing them and have better triggers as to when we should be passing over to sales. When we do pass to sale, we're able to give them a more holistic picture of the prospect, what they've done with us, what their interests are, and some of the personalization that we've done. So that conversation that sales has is stronger. So in a practical sense, how we do it is, things like programmatic. Whilst that's all great, what we're finding is the leads that are coming out of that, or the responses, I should say, they're not even leads, are very early stage, right? And we have to do a ton of work to nurture them. And that is great, and eventually that gets to sales. But often we also need to supplement that with more direct or data where we're seeing intent, right? So things like Priority Engine is great because that's got demonstrable intent. We know people are more further down the sales cycle, and then we use that also with the sales team, and we package that in. We engage with them, we package between Tech Target and our information, and we package that up for sales as well.
Wow.
So,
you heard that here first. No, to wrap this up, because I want to leave a little bit of time for the crowd if there's questions. Obviously, there's a lot of different organizations, different markets, different sizes here in the audience. What is your recommendation, regardless of market or size, on embracing data to ultimately just make you more effective as a marketer and to make your company more powerful?
Okay, so look, I do think it does start with, and I think the SaaS people said it, you really do have to spend your time on the boring stuff, which is to really ensure that you're tagging and collecting everything properly and it's accurate. I think once you've gotten past that, whatever size of organization you're working for, and in fact, I think it's more important when you're in a big organization, your team has to act very entrepreneurially, and you really need to validate that data, not take other people's word for it, and then get the insights out of it. And then, you're masters of your own destiny, right? With that insight, what are you going to do with it, right? How are you going to make a difference? So I really think that adding that human entrepreneurial spirit to the data, understanding that ultimately you're dealing with people and we're moving towards personalization, I think all of those components are really important to make that data and those insights sync. Yeah. I think those are key.
Wow, I think that's very powerful. Thank you. So we'll open it up real quick for the last few minutes. Any questions for Sulo and the IBM team? Quiet crowd. Great. Well, Sulo, thank you very much. This is a wonderful session, and I know that everyone probably took away a lot of really key bits of information. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone.